Let's go live now to the Shadow Immigration Minister Dan Tehan, who joins us on the program. Thanks for your time. The government says it's fixing a system where there was visa exploitation, international students were rorted, that program was rorted, and all of this was left to happen under the coalition watch. Do you accept some of the accountability for what we're seeing here in response today?
Well, Kieran, what we're focused on is the here and now and what's been announced today. And what's been announced today shows that the figure in the May budget, which was 1.5 million people coming over 5 years, is now 1.6 million people over 5 years. What the here and now is that people are struggling with their cost of living and they don't want to see housing prices going up further, rental prices going up further. They don't want to see it harder and harder to see the doctor. They don't want congestion continuing to increase. And there's nothing that's been announced today which says in the short to medium term that the government is listening to the concerns of the Australian people and seeking to address this record levels of immigration, levels that we've never seen the like of, confirmed today around 900,000 people over 2 years. Australia has never had to deal with such a surge like this, and that's the problem with what's been offered today from the government. There is nothing to address these issues that we're getting from this surge of 900,000 in the short to medium term.
Do you welcome the tougher English language tests for international students?
Look, we've got to wait and see what the government actually produces and when they produce it. We've seen from this government they're very good at talking tough, but when it comes to actually doing, they're not very good at all. We saw that with the recent High Court decision where there was a lot of tough talk and then was followed by a complete lack of action. So let's wait and see the detail. We don't know when the test is going to be introduced. We do know that already they've issued visas overseas for international students, 90,000 already this financial year. So whether it's going to apply to them or not, we don't know. There's so many questions that still need to be answered. It's very hard to tell just on what they're saying whether you can support it or not.
Do you, just to recap that first question I put to you though, do you accept that the government is trying to navigate a situation where there has been visa rorting, where there was a massive visa processing backlog as well, that while you're not happy with what they're responding with, they've got a challenging situation left in the last couple of years by the coalition government?
No, there's always been a challenging issue when it comes to immigration. We were left a challenging issue when it came to illegal maritime arrivals. We had to deal with visa fraud when we were in government, and some of that was left over from Rudd Gillard Rudd. There's always challenges. The thing about it is how you meet them when you're in government. And the Labor government, the Albanese Labor government, has been in now for 18 months. They had the Christine Nixon report looking at what needed to be done to address some of these issues. They sat on it for 6 months. This Parkinson review, that was released in February, and it's not until now, December, that they're responding to it. And meanwhile, we've seen the numbers increase significantly from 1.5 to 1.6 million over 5 years. And not only that, we're now seeing these international students that are coming in at record numbers seeking to claim asylum at record levels. Now, that's something we've never seen before. I'm not seeing anything in this review that specifically deals with that. So there's always issues you've got to deal with when you're in government. We didn't have the cost of living crisis that the government's facing now, and that's why they've sat, I can't believe they've sat on their hands now for the whole of this year without responding to these record numbers. They're only doing it now in December when you've got housing prices going up, rental prices going up. It's hard to see a GP. People are dealing with severe congestion again in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. All this has been happening right through the year, and the government has just sat on their hands.
The number for the year 23-24, the current financial year, in the May budget was forecast to be 315,000. It's now up to, in the mid-year budget update, according to the numbers received today, it's up to 375,000 for this financial year. Are we still seeing a COVID catch-up at play?
I don't think we're seeing a COVID catch-up at play. What we're seeing is Labor's Big Australia at play. We started warning about Labor having a Big Australia policy by stealth nearly 12 months ago. And what we're seeing today is no reason why we should doubt the fact that Labor are still pursuing a Big Australia approach. They're trying to disguise it, but the numbers clearly show that that's what's happening. I'll give you one example. It's the COVID visa. 175,000 COVID visas have been issued. Now, the pandemic has finished. Labor have issued more COVID visas post the pandemic than were issued during the pandemic. It's just one example of them producing their Big Australia by stealth approach. It's quite extraordinary. I mean, these numbers we haven't seen the like of. And I've got to remind your viewers, Kieran, this is at a time when it takes something like infrastructure. They're cutting infrastructure investment. Labor always sadly makes a mess of immigration, and it's exactly what they're doing again in the 18 months that they've been in government.
As a former trade minister, you know the importance of higher education as an export. International education is a key export for our nation. Are some of these changes potentially putting that at risk? Are we seeing the explosion of that industry, which has seen huge growth in the last decade or so? Is that due to lax rules? What's your assessment of that? And should we tread carefully in terms of that impact on Australian economic growth?
No, well, what we've seen is a blowout in international student numbers that is putting pressure on the social licence that international students have in this country. And it's something that needs to be seriously looked at and seriously addressed. And the universities have to play their part in this, because if you don't, then the Australian people, and I think they're at this stage, are saying it is too much. What the Labor government should be focusing on is getting the focus back on domestic Australian students and making sure that they're getting properly educated. Obviously, there is a place for international students as well. But in the last 18 months under this Labor government, it's got completely out of whack. And that isn't good for the international students in this country. It's not good for our reputation when it comes to international students. And it's one of the messes that the Labor government have created, and they need to do something about it. And, there was a warning on the weekend in the reports in the paper that we now have record numbers of international students claiming asylum once they get here. That shows that there's something wrong and the system is broken. And that's why the Labor Party needs to act. And my great fear is that once again we're seeing all talk and no action when it comes to this Labor government, because the numbers actually increase as a result of what they've announced today over the short to medium term.
Finally, let me get your reaction to this Australia Day event that was cancelled at the High Commission, Australia House in London. Apparently it's been going for a couple of decades. The new High Commissioner, Stephen Smith, has cancelled it. What's your reaction?
So this event has been going for over 20 years, and then Anthony Albanese's hand-picked High Commissioner to London, Stephen Smith, has decided to cancel it because it is held on or around Australia Day. Now, Anthony Albanese said before the last election that he had no plans to change the date of Australia Day. he needs to get on the phone to Stephen Smith and he needs to tell him that this event needs to go ahead, that Australia Day is our national holiday. And if Anthony Albanese doesn't do that, then the Australian people are right in saying he is a weak leader.
Dan Tehan, appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kieran.